Eleanor Voss had kept her mother's wedding china locked inside the tall oak cabinet in the dining room for more than 41 years. The set was complete for 12. Dinner plates with a delicate gold rim and pale rose pattern, salad plates, soup bowls, teacups and saucers, a large oval platter, and a gravy boat that still had the tiny chip on its handle from the day her mother first used it in 1952. Eleanor took the pieces out only twice a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas, and she always washed them by hand afterward in warm water and mild soap, drying each one carefully with a soft chamois cloth before returning them to their velvet-lined shelves. She never trusted them to the dishwasher. To her, they weren't just dishes. They were her mother's voice, her mother's careful joy, preserved in porcelain. Her mother had died of breast cancer in the spring of 1983. Eleanor, then 31 and working as the head librarian at Jefferson High School, had bought the entire set herself with her first real savings, $428.76, charged to her Sears card in 6 painful monthly payments. It was the most extravagant thing she had ever purchased for herself. She wrapped each piece in tissue paper the day she brought it home and placed it in the cabinet like a promise. Someday, she would have a table full of people who deserved to eat off these plates. That someday never quite arrived in the way she imagined. When her daughter Claire and son-in-law Marcus moved in just until the baby comes, Eleanor opened the cabinet for the first time in 7 years. Claire was 7 months pregnant and wanted to host a baby shower. "Mom, please," she said, eyes shining. "The good plates will make everything feel special." Eleanor hesitated only a moment before she turned the little brass key and lifted the stack of dinner plates onto the counter. She told herself it was only one afternoon. The first week Marcus was living there, he broke 3 of them. They had invited friends over for a barbecue. Marcus, laughing too loudly after his 3rd beer, fumbled a plate while trying to balance a burger and a soda. It slipped from his hand and shattered on the patio bricks. 2 more followed in the next hour, casual casualties of rough handling and indifference. "Oops," he said each time, grinning. "These old things are so fragile, huh?" Eleanor said nothing. She swept up the pieces, glued what could still be saved with ceramic adhesive, and moved the rest to the highest shelf where they would be out of reach. Something small and sharp twisted inside her chest, but she swallowed it down the way she had swallowed so many things over the years. 2 years passed. The baby, Liam, was now 3. The temporary arrangement had become permanent. Claire worked part-time at a pediatric clinic. Marcus called himself an independent trader and spent most days on the living room couch in sweatpants, laptop balanced on his knees, yelling at candlestick charts. The china cabinet stood nearly empty. One rainy Tuesday afternoon, Eleanor opened eBay on her tablet, and there it was. Vintage rose and gold china salad plates, set of 6, excellent condition. The seller's name was Marcus Voss. Starting bid, $180. She stared at the screen until the listing photo blurred. Then she took a screenshot, printed it in color, folded the page into quarters, and tucked it into the back of her recipe binder next to the card her mother had written decades earlier. "Use these when you're happy, darling. They're meant for joy." That same evening, she walked into the living room. Marcus was playing Call of Duty at full volume while Liam napped upstairs. The gunfire and explosions rattled the windows. She stood in the doorway until he finally glanced over. "Turn it down," she said quietly. He didn't pause the game. "It's my house too now, Elle. Relax." The nickname, short for Eleanor, had always grated on her, but she had never corrected him. Today she felt the word land differently, like a slap she had finally noticed. Without a word, she walked to the laundry room, opened the metal breaker box, and flipped the switch for the living room circuit. The television died instantly. The console powered off with a soft whine. Marcus exploded out of the recliner.
"Are you insane?" Eleanor held up the single yellowed receipt she had carried downstairs in her cardigan pocket, the original 1983 purchase order. Her own neat signature sat at the bottom in blue ink, faded almost to gray. "This house," she said in the calm, measured tone she used when helping a student find a book report source, "and everything in it, including the breaker box, the Wi-Fi router, the refrigerator you eat from every day without ever replacing what you take, is still in my name, only my name." Marcus laughed, but the sound was harsh and hollow. "So what? You're going to throw your own grandson out over a few old plates?" "No," Eleanor answered. "I'm going to evict the man who sold my mother's salad plates on eBay and then told me this is his house, too. You have 30 days. The formal notice will be served tomorrow morning." Claire cried for 3 straight days, long, gulping sobs that echoed through the house. Marcus shouted, threatened to take Liam and move to his brother's place in Georgia, posted furious rants on Facebook about boomer entitlement and toxic family boundaries. Eleanor read none of it. She simply called the cable company and suspended the sports package Marcus watched obsessively. She called the bank and froze the secondary debit card Claire used for groceries. The primary account had always remained solely in Eleanor's name. She changed the Wi-Fi password to a random string of letters and numbers she wrote on a slip of paper and locked in her jewelry box. Then she waited. Over the next 29 days, Marcus tried every tactic he knew. Guilt. "You're breaking Claire's heart. You're breaking Liam's home." Anger. Doors slammed. A fist put a small dent in the drywall beside the refrigerator. Charm. "Come on, Elle. We're family. Let's just forget this and start over." Silence. For 3 days he refused to speak to her at all, sulking like a teenager. None of it moved her. On the 29th night, at 2:17 a.m., he appeared in the kitchen doorway while she was making chamomile tea. He stood there in boxer shorts and an old t-shirt, arms crossed, eyes glittering. "You think you're tough?" he hissed. Eleanor looked at him over the rim of her glasses. "I think I'm the owner, and I think you're trespassing after midnight on the 29th day of your notice period." He left the next morning before the sheriff's deputy arrived. He packed in a hurry, clothes thrown into garbage bags, gaming console wrapped in a towel, golf clubs rattling in the trunk of his car. He didn't say goodbye. Claire stayed another week. She slept on the couch, cried in the shower, apologized in circles. On the 8th day, she packed a single suitcase, kissed Liam's sleeping forehead, and moved into a small 1-bedroom apartment 15 minutes from her new full-time job as a medical biller. She left quietly, without drama. Liam began staying with Eleanor 4 days a week while Claire worked. The custody arrangement was written, signed, and notarized. A single line was very clear. Marcus was not permitted on the property without 48 hours written notice. Eleanor bought a simple set of everyday white stoneware dishes from Target. Sturdy, plain, replaceable. She also ordered one single replacement dinner plate in her mother's exact rose and gold pattern from a specialty site that dealt in discontinued china. When it arrived, she unwrapped it carefully, ran her thumb over the gold rim, and placed it alone on the middle shelf of the cabinet, like a quiet sentinel. Every Wednesday at 3:30 p.m., 3 other grandmothers from the neighborhood came for tea and paperwork lessons. They called themselves the China Club, half in jest, half in earnest. They sat around the dining room table with mugs of Earl Grey and chamomile, legal pads open, pens ready. They practiced phrases together. "I will not sign anything today. That is not a loan. That is a gift I cannot afford to give. My name is still the only name on the deed." And the most important one, repeated like a mantra, "No." One Wednesday, Betty arrived with red-rimmed eyes. Her son had been pressuring her to sign the family house over to him for investment purposes. "He says he'll buy me something better later, Mom. I'm scared if I say no, he'll stop talking to me." Eleanor poured her tea and slid a blank sheet of paper across the table. "Listen carefully," she said. "A gift deed is forever. You cannot take it back. If you want to leave something to him, write a will. As long as you are alive, the property is yours. Full stop." Betty listened. She wrote down bullet points. By the time she left, she was sitting straighter. "I feel lighter," she said at the door. "I'm going home to talk to him, not to cry, but to talk." Eleanor smiled. "Good. And remember, no is a complete sentence." Years later, on a quiet Saturday afternoon, Liam, now 7, stood beside her in front of the china cabinet. He was tall for his age, all knees and curiosity. "Nana," he asked, "why are these plates so special?" Eleanor lifted him so he could see the single rose-patterned dinner plate on the middle shelf.
"Because they're not just plates, sweetheart," she said. "They're my mother's story.
And now they're part of mine, too. The part where I learned I could say no and still be loved. Liam touched the glass door gently. When can we use them? When we want to, she answered. Only when we want to, not because anyone else expects it. From that day forward, the cabinet stayed locked most of the time, not out of fear, but out of respect. And every Wednesday at 3:30, when the kettle whistled and the women arrived with their folders and their questions, Eleanor sat at the head of the table with perfect posture, poured tea, and listened. She no longer apologized for taking up space. She no longer turned the television volume down when someone else walked in. She regulated the temperature, the lighting, the sound, the rules, exactly as she pleased. And when the house was quiet at night, when the only sounds were the tick of the grandfather clock and the soft creak of old floorboards settling, Eleanor sometimes walked into the dining room, opened the cabinet, and ran her finger along the gold rim of that one remaining original plate. She didn't need 12 settings anymore. One was enough.